Okay, so hello everyone. So this is the second ORDAO office hours meeting. Now I will make a short overview about ORDAO, like what it is, stuff I covered in the last meeting. So what is ORDAO? ORDAO is first of all a proposed upgrade to Optimism Fractal software. It's also an app that Fractals could use to perform their main on-chain functions, and it might also be of interest to other kinds of DAOs. Uh, so in a nutshell, how Optimism Fractal currently works is that after respect game, people submit their breakout room results on chain, and administrator then manually reviews all the submissions, and based on that, uh, transaction is constructed manually and submitted on chain. So it's a very manual process and tedious and not very decentralized. And in comparison, how ORDAO works, there is an executive contract which basically holds a vote about what to execute on chain, uh, what respect to distribute, for example, and to whom. And this in this voting, all votes are weighted by respect holdings of each account. And yeah, there is a new ORDAO also goes with a new respect contract, which is configured in a way where only uh, only executive contract can issue respect. And so when it comes to respect game, how it will work is that respect game participants submit uh, rankings from their room as before, but in this case, uh, instead of these submissions being merely signals, these submissions are, in this case, actually votes on a proposal to distribute respect. And to distribute respect according to the rules of a fractal. So level 6 receives 55 respect, level 5, 34, and so on. And I argue that this offers many benefits to a fractal, like familiarity, flexibility, because fractal participants can fix any issues with submissions, with breakout room results in case, for example, someone does not have an account or something else, or and so on. And yeah, also uniformity. So in a nutshell, that's quick overview about what is ORDAO and now what we are doing here in ORDAO office hours. So basically, this is a space for learning about ORDAO, for asking questions about it, and hopefully we will also be able to put some practice into it, so that you would learn to use our console, which is an app which allows you to currently interact with ORDAO deployment through console-like interface until at least someone implements graphical user interfaces for those features. And another cool thing, new thing, is that for participating in this meeting, you get ORDAO Office Hours Award, which is basically you could see this as first of all, it's proof of attendance that you participated, and in the future it could be looked at sort of certificate that you know what ORDAO is, and you could maybe teach others, which in case ORDAO becomes used in the future could become valuable information. And yeah, thank you. And yes, and another cool thing about this is that I'm using ORDAO app itself to distribute these awards. So I made a ORDAO deployment specifically for this use case, for ORDAO office hours, and last meeting at the end we played the respect game and submitted results, and based on that today I issued an execute action, and based on that these awards were distributed. So cool thing about it is that we're not just learning, we are testing our DAO app, while also distributing some cool soul-bound tokens. Thank you. Yeah, so that's it for an intro. I don't know, maybe if Cassie or someone else has some questions that they would like to clear up before going into one of the topics, we could do that. Any questions?
I feel like there's so much overlap, and I've been kind of watching what Dan's been doing from the sidelines for the last year or so. So I feel comfortable with what you're showing me, and when I'm talking about the group, I feel like I'm representing it accurately.
Yeah, so you're saying there is an overlap between what?
Just like obviously because we're using the same fractal process that we used with the Clarion team with Dan Lammer. So I participated in that. And then being an Eden member, I left Eden for a while when it went through a transition, I think pretty much the same time Dan left. And then I returned to Eden when Matthias proposed his fractal app and was one of the people who worked with the group to get that in through beta testing and in use now. And I'm trying to extract all of the data to show a use case of how we've been able to manage a treasury and distribute it through a worker proposal system. So those types of overlaps I think are really great. I also have been reading a lot, and I was reading that interesting paper about building in decentralized apps that you shared, which I thought was great.
Cool. Yeah, so you're right. Basically, ORDAO app was born out of trying to help Optimism Fractal, and Optimism Fractal basically has history of inspiration from original Fractal white paper and other works of Daniel Larimer. So we all basically branch out from the same roots, so to say, in a way.
I think it's neat in a way because we've branched out, but now we're finding that we've kind of collected enough data to add some value to find ways to have synergies and reconnect. I was talking this morning to Vlad about finding ways to connect more with Dan's group because Dan's working on some other projects right now that we're aware of. We thought there might be some synergies we could make with James Mart and the team there just to start to show them what we're doing because down the road when they're ready to launch, we could be providing them with really valuable data of how we've iterated on the idea and how each different DAO has had unique outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be very valuable to everyone. And yeah, but now getting back to the ORDAO. So I see go more in depth about OREC security model with regards to voting has received the most votes. So we can focus on that maybe. And yeah, so what I had in mind here specifically is that in last meeting Howard raised some important questions with regards to OREC, the main component which determines how votes are counted and how proposals are passed here. So now I will try to recap what he said. If Howard, if you want, please correct me. So one thing was that basically a risk of some respect holder accumulating too much respect and then holding too much power over the fractal. And one of the other things was that there being too many proposals and it being hard to review everything for voters, and the way it usually results in DAOs is with voter apathy, there is very little votes. What do you think, Howard? Does that capture some of the concerns that you raised?
Yeah, I've been I was a little bit worried about the voter apathy, like you had said, but then when we went through the process, it seems that that is mostly taken care of because it doesn't really even seem like you are voting on a proposal. And then that extra 2-day veto period makes a lot more sense because it basically seems like only people in the actual breakout group vote for that proposal, and then but anybody can go and look at that and be like, hey, like something's weird about that. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So yeah, that that made me feel a little bit better. And then I was talking about the so if somebody has like a lot more respect than all of the other people in like a breakout room or something, then they could theoretically hold up the proposal and prevent it from getting passed.
Yes. So just maybe I will want to say one more thing with regards to voter apathy. So, and with regards to context where I expect this or these ORDAO tools to be used, I expect them to be used as the last step in the decision-making life cycle. So basically, I imagine the fractal will have processes by which it builds consensus. So for example, in this case, in optimism fractal, we use snapshots and council system where we vote on proposals and consider them passed if at least 2/3 of council members vote yes. So I expect that to not change after if we adopt ORDAO, and I expect ORAC to be used only for execution of consensus. So basically, everything that first of all that is part of rule set of a fractal, so respect game rules and so on, and any additional proposals that council passes, only those things should go through ORAC. But it's up to agreement between respect holders to use ORAC that way, which I think is not that hard since respect holders get respect by participating in meetings, and it's unlikely that they will attack or so on. So then ORAC becomes only about whether we judge. When you vote in ORAC, you're basically voting whether the proposal to execute something represents consensus of the fractal, which I think it's much easier vote to have than to decide on than whether we like the idea or not. So just wanted to say that. I see, Howard, you have your hand raised, I think, or no,
It's me.
Yeah, Cassie does.
Oh, okay.
I really like the question Howard raised in the last meeting, and it was why I voted to discuss this in the polls. I think you, from our experience in Eden and even some of the comments in Fractally recently on like the Sherry Scissor statement are really important to think of and to build for attack, even though you obviously want to have aligned communities. We haven't always found that. I don't know if anyone listened to the WLFI call on Twitter Spaces last night. I found it interesting because when they were talking about the token launch, they reminded me, I mean, some people might not want to hear this, but it reminded me of the positive things that B1 was talking about when EOSIO was launched, a community, a fair launch. They were bringing back the importance of governance in their conversation, which I think hasn't been an attractive topic for a lot of people from 2022 and 2023, I feel like the governance kind of fell off the spectrum of what people were speaking about. And to me, that's why I got involved in blockchain. So I would definitely look at something like they're doing where they're going to cap voting. So regardless of your stake, when you're involved in a vote, you don't get more than 5% influence on the outcome of that vote. And just looking at how bad DPoS failed us and looking at ways that we can make sure that people's voices are represented. When I looked in other ecosystems and after I was disillusioned with what was happening with EOS and the lack of governance I felt on chain, I looked at the Telos community and I was hoping to find something different there, but they also haven't solved for governance. So that's a huge thing. I think if you can create a way for a community to have consensus on chain that's fair and equitable, it will be amazing.
Yeah, good points. One key thing that makes fractals well positioned here, more well positioned, and Dan referred to this in the previous meeting, is that this is respect, and it's not non-transferable respect that we are using. The only way to earn it is by participating in these meetings, and respect is distributed using Fibonacci distribution. So that makes it much less likely to accumulate too much into hands of a few.
Do you use a rolling average? Like we were using a 12-week in Fractally, and when we gamed it out, and it would basically take a new member 6 weeks to infiltrate if they were the top contributor week after week. Chris Barnes did a bunch of different scenarios for us where he showed people coming in and what they would rank. You might be interested in seeing it.
Yeah, that's very useful, but here ORDAO would not use moving average. It will simply use all the respect distribution created over the last fourth now is fourth season of Optimism Fractal, so it was use the whole distribution from that whole period.
So a new person would have a very difficult time moving up the ranks at this point, and then you guys would have like some kind of advantage, I guess.
Yes, that's right. It's a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, the older the distribution, the harder it is to attack. On the other hand, if it's very old and you have contributors which have contributed for years, then for a new person it's very hard, and it's very hard to make a difference anytime soon. So there is basically rationale for using a moving average over a limited number of weeks. Howard?
Yeah. Well, I think at least in the exact context of like the respect game, I don't think necessarily like, the moving at not using the moving average doesn't really bother me, because like if there's like 6 or 7 people in a breakout room, and all they're doing is voting on who should get more respect, in terms of like like I said, if you weight it based off, especially if we set a weight, then it's not going to matter like all that much. If somebody has like 15,000 respect and somebody's new and only has like, a couple hundred respect, because if all you're doing is distributing respect, then it's not as bad. Now, the veto period does bother me actually a little bit, because then, especially if the respect isn't weighted, that's only no votes, and then all it takes is one like disgruntled developer to like hold that up. Like that's really my biggest concern, is one disgruntled developer who's been helping out for years gets upset at somebody, and then next thing you know, like every time that person's in a proposal, to get more respect, they just go in and veto it.
Yes, valid concern. So one thing is that this could be fixed by voter participation. So basically, you can create another proposal to distribute for the same breakout room, and this time people will know that this developer will issue his no vote in that stage. So we can, during the voting stage, we can try to campaign to get more votes. And again, I don't think this is not a typical kind of campaigning for votes where you ask people to issue their opinion. You basically, it will probably be obvious to everyone that this is the right thing to do. Well, of course, you could imagine all kinds of scenarios, but at some point, if there is too much disagreement, I mean, I think DAO would fork anyway, whatever mechanism you propose. But yeah, like I said, I think it's easier to campaign for votes in ORDAO because you're voting on whether something represents consensus of a fractal, and not just you're not asking people to do research to look into idea and then issue an opinion. You're simply asking, was this decided by us as a group?
Sorry, something got caught in my throat. Yeah, I agree with that. But again, like, really what I'm trying to ask is, why do we have the veto period with only a no vote? Because that, like I said, that basically opens up all of those proposals opens up those proposals to like some sort of negative attack. And then, like, from a user perspective, if from like a user perspective, right? Let's say somebody hates me, right? And they keep voting no against me. Like, it's not a small amount of work to like now talk to the right people to set up a new proposal, reach out to the Discord, try to get people to like, hey, like, this guy's like attacking me, like, can you please like pass this through and get all that done? Like, that can all be very discouraging. Like, what I'm trying to ask is, like, what was the thinking behind only putting the no votes veto period?
Yeah, I'm very glad that you asked this, because this way we will cover like the thinking behind ORAC and how ORAC works, which is the main component here. I see some hands raised, so I would answer like Howard's question about rationale behind veto period. Cassie, do you want to say something before that?
No, it was on the same topic. I was just going to say you could have a consequence for an outlier so that someone couldn't, like in the scenario Howard's talking about, where he's just being attacked by another dev who doesn't like what he's working on, or whatever reason it could be, that if it happens a certain amount of time, there's a consequence to that dev because it's retaliatory, or that there could be some kind of outlier mechanism like we use when we don't find consensus, that person's voice is kind of muted mathematically amongst the crowd.
Yeah, and with regards to specific example where some developer would attack one person, and then that one person would have to find voters who would help in the community, that so far in these use cases, it would be very hard to attack one person here, because you either vote no on a respect distribution for a whole breakout group, or you vote no on a proposal to distribute for some individual, which I think should not happen often, and maybe even never. So and plus you have people who would probably keep track of all respect distributions for all breakout rooms, because you have people who are invested in this fractal and they care that respect math means something. But that's not yet answer with regards to rationale for veto period. Then, do you want to add something?
Thanks, Adas. I have some thoughts, but I think you're going to go answer Howard. And I'm curious to see what you say there, and then maybe I can follow up after you.
Okay, thanks. So, yeah, so rationale for veto period is basically it all comes down to, I guess you could say, trying to battle voter apathy. Yeah, so I covered this in the main OREC like document I updated recently. Yeah, so all typical DAO voting systems suffer from voter apathy, where there is not enough voter participation, and that creates a tricky situation because you don't know what quorum to set in advance. Too big of a quorum will make it likely that DAO will get stuff. Too small quorum will make it too easy for small number of participants to control the system. And yeah, so my approach here is to set the quorum required to execute on-chain transactions to be very low. So as a result, under typical low voter turnout situations, it is possible to execute transactions. But then, in case transaction which community disagrees with is proposed, rely on rest of community to block it, and then make it easy to block it by introducing veto period. And again, the context is important here, that these proposals will be about executing things which were already agreed upon. That's key because that makes it easy to campaign during veto period to combat any kind of attacks which try to do something that does not represent consensus. Yeah, and that creates that's a model where it's very flexible because you can have a new fractal which uses OREC to have in the beginning administrator execute everything, while also being able to claim that it's decentralized, because if respect holders wanted, they could take over basically control from administrator by voting actively in OREC. Rosemary, I see you have your hand raised.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have a question in case we have to make a proposal, additional proposal for distributing respect in case, let's say, an account was missing during the respect game and we have to make manually like a proposal. Are we going to expect people for this proposal to be approved from the people that were in that respect game room, or can anyone approve it? Like even other people who were in the other breakout room, due to based on the evidence we provide with that proposal of like how to distribute respect. Does that make sense?
Yes. So everyone, vote of every respect holder counts, regardless in what room he participated in. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Okay. So it can be from anyone.
Yes. And I guess for people from other rooms, it's like I said, after the respect game, I think we should start looking for evidence for consensus rather than trying to build consensus. So, and whole fractal could basically look for consensus of evidence in that room.
Okay, I suppose later we're going to discuss the steps to make a proposal in such case and stuff like that, the details.
Yes. Well, currently the way to do that is through our console, which is not a user-friendly way, but in the future, I hope we will have front ends to do that if we end up adopting this.
Okay.
Howard?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, so it's like you said, these, like most of these proposals are already going to be basically like agreed upon. Is quorum even really necessary then? Because basically what, because like basically it's like approved unless somebody comes in and says no, right? Or enough people come in and say no. But that how many people need to come in and say no is going to be entirely dependent on the how much respect is in each breakout room. Um, I understand that you're worried about voter apathy, but we're basically, it's like you said that we're basically passing these already, and then it's almost like a period for people to come in and like double check work. So my question to you is like, why even worry about voter quorum if it doesn't seem like you're really going to be using it unless you're trying to use it as a weight for how many no votes have to go up against the total amount of respect in a breakout room?
Well, the reason for voter quorum is to not allow non-respect holders to make passing proposal. So you need some minimal amount of respect for community to listen to your order proposal, to basically mind your order proposal to look at it.
Okay, but couldn't you just make it so this way somebody could not vote if they did not have respect?
What do you mean? How?
Well, so like you're trying to say like they have to be a part of the community, correct? In
Yeah.
order to make a proposal.
Yes, I understand what you're asking. So
Okay.
why not just simply have a simple check if someone has at least some respect, and then count his vote just if it's non-zero? Well, because if you have someone who just participates in one breakout room in one respect game, and it could be an attacker if all it takes to participate in one breakout room to later spam the community with proposals. I mean, it's a little too easy, and this is an attack vector. This system also has to protect against this spam attacks where people would create many proposals, which other participants would have to block.
Okay. So all right. So now I get it. So you're doing quorum not so much to make sure that enough people are in a breakout room, or not so much to make sure that there's enough people in a breakout room to make the proposal, but just to straight up prevent spam.
Yes, I guess you could say
Right.
that.
Yeah. Okay. That makes more sense than for the quorum. Thank you.
Then
Yep. Thanks, Adas. Thanks for the questions, Howard and everybody. By the way, I saw Rosemary asked Adas if you could speak a little bit louder in the mic or move it closer to your mouth so it's a bit louder. Yes, I just wanted to comment. I had written a couple of notes based upon things that people had said that I just wanted to highlight from my understanding of the OREC system. So I think one way to view it, I don't know if this is like the best way to view it, but as like an optimistic quorum system, similar to how, say, the OP stack uses an optimistic rollup system. And that works quite well for the OP stack. It's enabled like the foundation of the super chain, where basically like you're trusting that things work well, but providing a fallback option if things don't work well. So I think that's a really great innovation overall that allows us kind of consent-based decision making. process and doing it on chain. And I think an important thing to note too is here that I think that Tadasa has like some recommendations of the specifications, such as say 5% for the minimum quorum to execute on transactions. But all these are variables too that could be tweaked by the community itself via OREC as well. So I remember, like, for example, Vlad had mentioned in the Eden Rectal meeting, like, he was like, well, proposals might be too difficult to pass, or they might be too easy to pass, and so forth. But I think that's the point of picking a few different variables that the community can calibrate and find the appropriate ratio. So if the community wanted to have a deployment or instance where they had a higher quorum, so it wasn't just like to say reduce spam, but you wanted to have a higher amount of people with a higher amount of respect to proposals, and they could do that. But I think Tadas is just suggesting it as a recommendation to have it low, like say 5%. But all these things are flexible and tweakable. And then on that note too, about how it's like flexible and tweakable, and how OREC could actually be used to tweak these parameters and calibrate them. There was a comment that I believe Cassie and Howard both made before, or there was general discussion about it. And it was talking about like the weighted, like the weighted allocate, the weighted, uh, basically the weighted respect over 12 weeks, and that kind of rolling average, and how Tadas said you could use past seasons respect. And so OREC could similarly decide like what respect distributions to use and to respect as well. And it could be very flexible in determining all these factors. So, for example, I have the idea like maybe prior seasons could have like a half-life of the amount that those respect counts. And then in like the example that Howard brought up before, if a proposal is made and then like some disgruntled developer like basically uses their own respect, and they have a lot of respect to like veto it, then the recommended cycle period is low. It's only like 3 days, I think, or something like that. And that could even be lower, or that could be more too. So I just wanted to provide like a bit of color about how the system is designed with these different variables, and um, for all these different use cases, there could be different variables that could be tweaked to make it like a little bit easier, a little more difficult to approve proposals or not approve proposals based upon what the community needs the most.
Yes, Abraham.
Okay, so I'm like framing this in the context of an organization that's trying to adopt respect as their means of voting. Is the assumption that proposals are only for respect distribution based on a user's contribution? The proposals are never going to be about some organizational goal or the way to do something. It's only for distributing respect tokens?
No, actually, it could. You could execute any EVM transactions, send any EVM message to another contract, say, and you can already do that through our console.
Oh, cool.
Some of the additional functions are already built into our client. So you can, for example, issue to a single respect to a single account instead of through a breakout room. You could make that kind of proposal, I mean. And it's also one other thing you might want to do is to make a proposal to change these variables. So only executed OREC proposal can do that.
Okay. Do we another question on the veto thing. So do I understand it that it only takes one veto to stop the proposal from approval?
No, it takes at least first of all, what is counted here is not the amount of votes, but their total weight, which is based on respect. And yeah, so the total amount of weight for no votes has to be at least half of what the votes for yes are. Does that make sense? You basically have to have at least 1/3 of all weight to be for on no.
I gotcha. So basically 1/3. So either it would have to be a whole bunch of people who agree on no makes up 1/3 of the total votes, or one or two people who have a lot of voting power would have to say no. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Okay,
That's correct.
That's helpful.
And by the way, I was considering. Later started considering some other options, but they specifically adaptive quorum biasing, but that's maybe a larger topic, and I think that would complicate the solution a little bit. So I'm maybe leaving it for further research for now.
That might delve into over optimizing too early.
Yeah. Okay, Dan.
Yeah, thanks. I know there's only 10 minutes left scheduled, so I'll try to just be quick, but a couple quick things I wanted to share, following up on a couple of the points that I made and you made there. So one, yeah, I think that action that you can do any transaction, that's the custom call action, if I'm correct. I remember Vlad was saying he liked that feature that allows you to do any EVM transaction, which I think is really valuable. And then I know you mentioned in the message in Discord that we could eventually do that kind of action to distribute, or just like a single respect distribution to Joshua, say, for joining half the meeting. So that'd be interesting to discuss whenever we get the chance to do that. And yeah, I think that's a powerful feature of this software that would be really helpful in fractals and would be appreciated many times to be able to distribute respect specifically, like one person, in ways that in times that the respect game, like somebody has to leave the respect game, or there's some other reason why somebody deserves respect and stuff like that. So I like that. I'm interested to discuss that. And then just one other thing I remembered that I wanted to say, kind of in response to what Howard was saying about like the disgruntled developer. Well, actually, maybe two things. So one, I believe that voting threshold of the 33% is also a modifiable variable that could be changed if the community wants. So I think it's like quite a good number. And then two, I think to consider is like if it's vetoed, it could also be just reproposed. Like in the whole cycle right now, I think it's like 3 days. So it could be reproposed, and then because it's optimistic in this way, like you could potentially approve it just by yourself if you have like over 5% of the power, or just get a couple people and maybe just make one post. So that makes it so like it's pretty low, risk. If somebody does veto it, you can always just repropose it and maybe share the post in the Discord or the community forum or something like that to be able to get some votes for it if needed.
Thanks, Dan. Cassie.
I had a question and a comment, so I'll start with my comment. I think that the way you're describing the custom features and how each proposal could have different thresholds or just set up differently by the user is really interesting. And then my question is, how many meetings do you have to attend if you were in the lowest ranking to be able to use the veto power?
You can, after earning at least the lowest amount of respect, you can still issue a no vote. Yeah, so one thing to understand is that basically the veto stage is just a stage where it has the only difference between veto stage and voting stage is that during veto stage only no votes are accepted, and no votes, like yes votes, and like in the voting stage, they are weighted by respect. So
I'm just
your vote
thinking,
counts as much as you have respect.
I'm just kind of gaming out the idea that Howard was talking about if you had someone who was against you in the community, and in a small community like this, for example, you could effectually like invite a few people and start to veto things if they only have to attend one meeting. So you might want to consider maybe looking at it from another approach where you have to have a higher threshold to be able to go into voting at all. I'm not sure, but I just feel like you want to get this down as tight as possible so that you don't get attacked.
Yeah, so one thing to understand, I would say this is it's impossible to veto if you only participated only a couple of meetings unless you're held by other respect holders, because your vote compared to bigger respect holders which participated more will have very little power.
So if you divide it into two groups, for example, like if the two of the founding members here who have about an equal amount of respect got into an argument and the community didn't automatically fork and it went through some turmoil, this is the type of scenario that I'm opening up, because it's a lot of what we found in Eden when Chris got the $500,000 donation from Block One. The people at the EOS Network Foundation weren't happy about that, and they attacked us so that they could capture the bulk of the funding, and they were very successful in that. They probably captured upwards of 350,000 of the 500, if I were to give a rough estimate without being able to properly account for it just from watching. I'm sure Dan can comment on this as well. So yeah, if you get into that idea that you kind of split your group down the middle, all it takes is a little bit of a member flood to tip it in one direction or the other. And the ethical people don't tend to be the ones who are going to participate in a member flood. So you end up losing a lot of your good producers because their voices are muted by the nefarious actors.
Interesting scenario, but I think new participants would have to participate for a whole lot of meetings, and I find it hard to believe that community would not detect any like malicious intent, and I feel it unlikely that they would be able to rank high enough to make that attack more likely. I So I see Rosemary raised her hand first. Rosemary, is there something important you want to say?
Yes, yes. Yeah, can someone cancel a proposal that was automatically made after the game ended? And in case there was a mistake, let's say, mission, and in case there was something that had to be changed,
I find it
or
I didn't
is
hear
it
your.
better to just veto?
I find it hard to hear you. Could you repeat maybe a bit louder?
Yeah. Is it possible to proposal that was automatically after everyone submitted results on chain? In case I'm asking in relation to in case there's something that has to be changed and a new proposal to be made, does someone has to veto that automatically made proposal, or and then create a new one?
Yes, that's how this would work. But again, the veto is only possible through respect-weighted votes. Then, and meanwhile, I'm starting to create a fractalogram group for us to quickly reach consensus and distribute respect for this meeting.
Okay, sounds good. Looking forward to playing the respect game. And I'll just be quick. I just wanted to provide a bit more clarity of an example to, I think what Cassie was asking, maybe also something related to what Rosemary was saying too. So just to provide an example, we're thinking about deploying this for Optimus and Fractal. Optimus and Fractal is a community that's played Respect Game for 4 seasons now, or 41 meetings. If you go to optimusandfractal.com and go in the top right corner under the resources section, there's a link to the community account. I'll also share a link here. There's been a total of 8,109 Respect tokens distributed, and with a minimum quorum requirement of 5%, that would be approximately 400 Respect tokens, which if you got level 6 7 times and got 55 respect, then you'd be able to make that proposal yourself. So that just provides like some context, basically, with the current instantiation for Optimism Fractal, how much it would take for somebody to be able to like make and approve their own proposal. They'd have to get level 6 7 times, or some sort of equivalent there. And I'll share the link there in case anybody wants to like kind of game it out and do some different equations and stuff like that. And of course, it'd be different for different communities, but that's just an example, though.
Thanks, Dan. So I shared the link to the Telegram group in the chat, where we can reach consensus. Maybe I will also screen share for a recording. Okay, I see Howard left, unfortunately. Okay, so we are all 5, I guess, unless, yeah, Howard rejoined. Howard, can you join the Telegram group?
Yeah, where? Oh, here it is. I clicked the wrong one. Sorry. That's what it was.
Is the game once again, who knows the most about ORDAO? Who has the best understanding?
Yes, unless someone has a quick, better suggestion.
Okay, that works for me.
What if it was who asked the most thought-provoking questions?
Yeah, we could do this on this, actually. This meeting was very useful in that manner, I think.
We could. That put Tadasa at a slight disadvantage. You didn't ask good enough questions about ORDAO to us.
I had too focused on the answer.
Your presentation could be looked at as the questions, though, Tadas, because you're presenting the ideas there in a way. So we could try to evaluate your contributions as questions, perhaps.
Yeah, so maybe what about this? Who contributed the most to the discussion today?
That works.
Is everyone okay with that kind of prompt for the respect game?
Works for me.
Yeah, I like it too.
Okay, so we have 2 votes for Howard and 2 for me and 2 for Cassie. Very nicely split. So yeah, from my perspective, I think Howard approaches this from really good perspective. His questions are really on point, which drive me to explain ORDAO better. Although Cassie has the right approach too, I don't know. But
I'm okay with changing my vote to Howard. I voted for you, Tadas, because I felt like you would have put in a lot of time and thought to set up this week. in today. But if you would like it to go to Howard, I'll move mine.
Okay, let's move to Howard for now. Easier. And thanks, Cassie, for kind words.
Yeah, thank you for putting in all this effort and holding these office hours.
Thank you for looking at this. If nobody came, all of my work would basically mean not much. Okay, so I see. Is everyone seeing this?
Oh,
3 votes for Howard, 2 for Cassie, and 1 for me.
I just don't know how to change my vote in this. It's not giving me a choice.
You have to typically you have to click with right mouse button and then click retract vote. Or if you're on a phone, you hold on a message on a poll and then retract vote.
Okay, I've changed mine.
Okay, now Howard has 4 votes. Now level 5. Okay, I will switch vote to me to make it quicker. Thanks everyone.
thank you to Das. I agree with everything everybody said about you doing a great job hosting these meetings.
Thank you. Well, I'm not dancing, Joy, but
Maybe I'll start hosting the fractals sometime soon too.
I don't think so. You're planning on taking vacation, Dan?
I was thinking I wanted to maybe just start digging into the ORDAO code for a while, and I got some changes some changes to make. So just gonna build for a while, I think.
So you think we could switch? Like you become Tadas the developer and me the host.
We could do. It sounds like fun. We might get a little bit confused, but that sounds like a good time though.
Do like musical chairs.
Yeah. Although musical chairs would be even faster. That would be like switching between development and hosting and all these different roles after like 30 seconds. As we're dancing though, so that'd make it more fun.
Okay, 5 votes. Now,
I like the awards too. The awards look really cool.
yes, thanks to you who made the image. Nice way
Thanks
to
to Rosemary
compliment
for
it.
originally making the image. Yeah, right. Man, who did those rewards images? Huh. No, but it was mostly created by Rosemary in the first place. I just tweaked it and stuff like that. But you put it on chain, which is nice, and built it up.
Would you sometimes talk us through like what you did there with the to generate results? Because you seem like you copy pasted something and stuff.
Yes, good question. So I will maybe start screen share again. Yeah, so Fractalgram has this option among other options to when you're creating consensus messages. It has a custom option, and here if you submit, if you add the URL where you have to submit the results, input platform, which is a blockchain platform, then you could basically have submit to custom frontend for some other fractal. So I'm using this because I haven't made a preset for ORDAO office hours specifically.
Okay.
So let me submit.
It was nice. I got a confirmation after I submitted on chain rather than it just like hang on the button. That was a nice improvement.
Yes, that's one improvement over the old app.
Pretty slick.
Yeah, thanks again for hosting this. I got a jet, guys. I gotta get to work, but it was good seeing you all, and I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Howard, for thoughtful questions. We can. I saw you had your hand raised at one point. We did not come to that, but maybe next meeting if you join.
It's all good. Thanks again for all the helpful information. See you guys.
See you.
Thanks, Howard.
Hi,
See you.
Howard. I'm gonna
I have to go to.
same. I'll see you guys tomorrow, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Looking forward to it. Thanks,
See you
Cassie.
on Thursday. Bye bye.
Thanks, Rosemary. 3,
Okay.
2, 1, go ORDAO!
Yay.
All right. I guess I'll stop recording.
Me too.